For 8 decades, aviation historians have debated a single burning question: which propeller-driven fighter truly dominated the skies as the fastest machine of World War II? Today, we're ending that debate once and for all, armed with documented maximum speeds from official test data, verified wartime reports, and authenticated performance trials that left no room for doubt. Here are the 8 fastest propeller fighters that didn't just exist on paper. How do these country, but roared through actual combat missions during humanity's most devastating conflict. These aren't fantasy prototypes gathering dust in forgotten hangars or dream designs that never escaped the drawing board. Every single aircraft you're about to discover saw real production, and most tasted the fury of genuine combat, facing enemy fire with pilots whose lives depended on every mile per hour. Their breathtaking speeds emerged from cutting-edge engineering brilliance, desperate wartime innovation, and the relentless hunger to dominate the skies when the fate of nations hung in the balance. Let's count down from number 8 to the absolute undisputed champion that ruled the heavens in 1945. Number 8 brings us Germany's fearsome Focke-Wulf FW-100-992D9, screaming through the air at 426 miles per hour. Pilots knew it as the Dora, or the long-nose variant that represented a dramatic evolutionary leap from the radial engine FW-190 series that had terrorized Allied pilots since 1941. TQ D9's transformation was radical. Engineers ripped out the earlier BMW radial engine and replaced it with an inline Junkers Jumo 213A, requiring an extended nose that gave this beast its unmistakable predatory profile. This single change transformed the FW-190 from a brutal low-altitude street fighter into a high-performance hunter capable of engaging Allied bomber formations at crushing altitudes while holding its own against the latest American and British fighters unleashed over Europe. Production roared to life in August 1944, and over 700 rolled off assembly lines before the war's violent conclusion. Luftwaffe pilots praised its dramatically improved high-altitude performance, while it somehow maintained that excellent roll rate and legendary robust construction that made the FW-190 series a nightmare for Allied pilots. In those desperate, blood-soaked final months of the war, the Dora 9 fought with courage against overwhelming odds in the desperate defense of the crumbling Third Reich. Number 7 showcases Britain's magnificent Hawker Tempest 5, capable of tearing through the sky at 435 miles per hour. Developed as an improved evolution of the earlier Hawker Typhoon, the Tempest featured a revolutionary thinner wing profile and the more powerful Napier Sabre engine that transformed it into one of the Royal Air Force's most lethal low-altitude fighters. The Tempest entered frontline service in April 1944, arriving at the perfect moment to face Germany's terrifying V-1 flying bombs that rained destruction on London. Its exceptional speed at low altitude made it the most successful V-1 interceptor of the entire war, with Tempest squadrons accounting for over 800 of these pilotless weapons of terror. British pilots discovered they could catch the V-1s in level flight and either blast them from the sky or use their wingtips to flip the bombs off course in a breathtaking display of skill and courage. But the Tempest proved equally deadly in traditional air-to-air combat. Its combination of blistering speed, devastating firepower, and excellent handling characteristics made it a feared opponent that German fighter pilots learned to respect or die. In the final year of the war, Tempest squadrons racked up impressive kill ratios while providing crucial support for the Allied advance across blood-soaked Europe. Many veteran pilots considered it the finest piston-engine fighter Britain ever produced. A machine that combined elegance with raw killing power. Number 6. Presents the legendary Supermarine Spitfire Mark 14, reaching a stunning 446 miles per hour. This variant represented the ultimate evolution of that iconic fighter that had saved Britain during the darkest days of 1940, when invasion seemed inevitable and defeat felt certain. But the Mark 14 was a radically different machine from those early Spitfires that fought the Battle of Britain. The secret lay in the Rolls-Royce Griffon 65 engine, producing over 2,000 horsepower compared to the 1,000 horsepower Merlin engines of earlier Marks. This massive power increase demanded strengthening the entire airframe and enlarging the tail surfaces to handle the brutal additional torque that threatened to tear the aircraft apart. The result? A Spitfire that could climb like a rocket ship and fight effectively at altitudes where earlier versions gasped for air and struggled helplessly. First taking flight in January 1943, the Mark 14 entered squadron service in early 1944. It immediately proved its dominance against the latest German fighters, and was particularly devastating at intercepting high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft and the new German jets that represented Hitler's last desperate technological gamble. The Griffon's raw power delivered acceleration that absolutely shocked German pilots, who were accustomed to easily outrunning earlier Spitfire variants. Over 900 were built, serving with distinction until the war's final explosive moments. Before we reveal the top 5 fastest fighters, I'd genuinely love to know where you're watching from right now, and which of these incredible aircraft you think truly deserves that coveted number 1 spot. Drop a comment below and let me know if any of these rankings surprise you or challenge what you thought you knew. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into World War II aviation history, smash that subscribe button so you never miss the next journey into the machines that changed warfare forever. Number 5. Introduces America's powerful Grumman F-8F Bearcat, capable of an impressive 455 miles per hour. Designed as the ultimate lightweight carrier fighter, the Bearcat represented Grumman's audacious attempt to create the most powerful aircraft that could still operate from escort carriers, those small Jeep carriers that proved invaluable during the brutal Pacific. War engineers started with the massive Pratt & Whitney R2800, engine producing 2,100 horsepower, and built the smallest, lightest airframe that could possibly harness that tremendous power without shaking itself apart. The result was absolutely extraordinary. The Bearcat could claw its way to 10,000 feet in just 94 seconds, faster than any American fighter of that era. Its roll rate was phenomenal, and despite its compact size, it packed devastating firepower. 4 20mm cannons or 6 50-caliber machine guns that could shred enemy aircraft. The Bearcat's timing proved tragically unfortunate. It entered service in February 1945. Too late to taste combat in World War II. Only 24 had reached operational squadrons when Japan surrendered in August. But its performance absolutely impressed everyone fortunate enough to fly it. Test pilots called it the finest handling fighter of the entire Propeller era. A pilot's dream machine. In the post-war years, it became the mount of the legendary Blue Angels and set multiple time-to-climb records that stood untouched for decades. Number 4 reveals Germany's exceptional Focke-Wulf Ta 100T. Betu Saturn, reaching 469 miles per hour. This high-altitude interceptor represented Germany's desperate technological attempt to counter American and British bomber formations operating above 30,000 feet, where most German fighters struggled to perform and often became sitting ducks. The Ta 152H featured extended wings spanning nearly 48 feet, a pressurized cockpit that allowed pilots to breathe at crushing altitudes, and a Junkers Jumo 213E engine equipped with a sophisticated two-stage supercharger. This combination delivered exceptional performance above 40,000 feet, altitudes where most Allied fighters were gasping for air and losing power rapidly. At these oxygen-starved heights, the Ta-152H could outclimb, outrun, and outmaneuver virtually any opponent foolish enough to challenge it. But this remarkable aircraft arrived far too late to matter. Production began in November 1944, and perhaps 150 were built before the war's chaotic end. Few reached operational units, and even fewer saw genuine combat. Those that did earned immediate respect from Allied pilots who encountered them and lived to tell the tale. On April 14, 1945, Oberfeldwebel Willy Reschke, flying a Ta-152H, engaged 4 P-51 Mustangs at high altitude, shooting down 2 and damaging a third before escaping unscathed. A testament to the aircraft's remarkable capabilities when flown by skilled hands. The Ta-152H symbolized Germany's technological desperation in those final chaotic months. It was an outstanding design that arrived when Germany lacked the fuel, the trained pilots, and the industrial infrastructure to employ it effectively. What might have been a genuine game-changer in 1943 became merely a fascinating footnote in 1945. Number 3 brings us the Republic P-47M Thunderbolt, capable of a blistering 472 miles per hour. This specialized variant of the famous Jug was built for one singular purpose: catching and destroying Germany's fast, high-altitude fighters and early jets that had begun appearing over Europe in late 1944, threatening Allied bomber supremacy. The P-47M featured a specially modified Pratt & Whitney R2800-57 engine with an improved turbocharger system, water injection for emergency power bursts, and various weight-saving modifications that stripped away everything non-essential. These changes transformed the already formidable Thunderbolt into a high-altitude interceptor that could engage German jets and reach speeds that absolutely shocked pilots accustomed to flying earlier P-47 variants. Only 130 P-47Ms were built, entering service in December 1944 with the legendary 56th Fighter Group, the only unit authorized to operate this type. The 56th had specifically requested a faster Thunderbolt to counter the increasing German jet threat that conventional fighters couldn't catch. In practice, the P-47M proved temperamental and demanding. Its high-performance engine required meticulous maintenance, and early models suffered from severe engine failures that grounded the entire fleet for agonizing weeks. Once these teething problems were finally resolved, the P-47M proved absolutely devastating. It combined the Thunderbolt's legendary toughness and heavy armament with speed that could match or exceed virtually any German piston-engine fighter in the sky. The 56th Fighter Group flew P-47Ms until the war's final day, racking up kills against both conventional fighters and those early jets. It represented the absolute limit of what human engineering could achieve with the basic P-47 design. Number 2 unveils Germany's extraordinary Dornier du 335 Pfeil. 130, the Arrow, reaching 474 miles per hour. This was unlike any fighter aircraft that flew during World War II, featuring a revolutionary push-pull configuration with engines mounted at both nose and tail, driving separate propellers in a design that seemed to defy conventional wisdom. The concept was brilliant in its simplicity. By mounting one Daimler-Benz DB603 engine conventionally in the nose, and another behind the cockpit, driving a pusher propeller at the tail, Dornier eliminated the drag of wing-mounted engines while effectively doubling the available power. The result was a fighter with straight-line speed that exceeded almost everything in the sky. combined with heavy armament and armor that would have made it absolutely formidable in combat. But like so many late-war German designs born from desperation, the Do-335 arrived far too late and in far too few numbers to change Germany's fate. Development delays meant the first prototype didn't take flight until October 1943. Production aircraft began reaching test units in early 1945. But perhaps only 37 were completed before the war's violent end. None saw genuine combat, though several were evaluated in high-speed trials that confirmed their exceptional performance and validated the radical design. The Do-335 represented German engineering at its most innovative and most desperate. It was fast, heavily armed, and unlike anything else flying in any air force worldwide. But its complexity, late arrival, and Germany's collapsing industrial base meant it never had a chance to prove itself in the crucible of battle. Allied test pilots who flew captured examples after the war universally praised its speed and handling, calling it one of the finest piston-engine fighters ever built. Had it arrived 2 years earlier, the air war over Europe might have told a different story. And at number 1, T-T, the fastest propeller fighter of World War II, the North American P-51H Mustang, reaching an absolutely stunning 487 miles per hour. This ultimate evolution of the legendary Mustang represented the absolute peak, the pinnacle, the summit of American piston-engine fighter design. The P-51H was a comprehensive redesign from the ground up, not just a tweaked or modified P-51D with minor improvements. Engineers stripped nearly 1,500 pounds from the airframe through revolutionary lighter construction techniques, a completely redesigned fuselage, and ruthless removal of unnecessary equipment that added weight without adding capability. They installed the powerful Packard V1650-9 engine, the American-built version of the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin, equipped with water injection for emergency power when pilots needed every ounce of speed to survive. The result was a fighter that could nearly touch 500 miles per hour in level flight, a speed that seemed impossible just years earlier. But speed wasn't everything with the P-51H. The dramatic weight reduction transformed the Mustang's handling, characteristics in ways that stunned test pilots. The P-51H rolled faster, climbed quicker, and maneuvered more nimbly than any previous variant in the Mustang family. Test pilots called it the finest handling Mustang ever built, a machine that responded to pilot input like an extension of their own body. It retained the P-51's famous range, over 850 miles on internal fuel alone, meaning it could escort bomber formations deep into Japan while outrunning virtually any defender the Japanese could throw at it. Production began in February 1945. And 555 had been delivered by August when Japan surrendered after the atomic bombs fell. They arrived too late for combat in Europe, and while some reached the Pacific Theater, none engaged in air combat before the war ended with Japan's surrender. But the P-51H represented what was possible at the absolute edge of propeller fighter design. The furthest boundary human engineering could push piston-engine technology. It was faster, lighter, and more capable than anything else with a piston engine and propeller. In a war that drove aviation technology to unprecedented heights, the P-51H stood alone at the summit. These 8 fighters represent the absolute pinnacle of propeller-driven aviation technology, achieved during humanity's darkest hours. Each was designed during our most desperate conflict, when nations poured unlimited resources and their brightest minds into gaining even the slightest advantage in the skies above battlefields soaked in blood. The engineers who designed them and the brave pilots who flew them into combat pushed the boundaries of what was possible with piston engines and propellers to limits never before imagined. What's truly remarkable is how close these top speeds actually are. Just 61 miles per hour separates the FW1 onto D9 at number 8. From the P-51H at number 1, every single mile per hour came from countless hours of wind tunnel testing, incremental improvements, and desperate innovation under crushing wartime pressure when failure meant death. Each aircraft on this list was a masterpiece of engineering that could mean the difference between life and death for the men who climbed into the cockpit and took to the skies. Speed, of course, wasn't everything in aerial combat. Maneuverability, firepower, operational range, mechanical reliability, and pilot skill all mattered enormously in determining who lived and who died. But in a war where mere seconds could determine survival, where catching an enemy bomber before it reached its target could save thousands of innocent lives below, and where escaping superior numbers meant living to fight another day and return home to loved ones, speed was the ultimate advantage that every pilot desperately wanted. Now you know the 8 fastest propeller fighters of World War II, ranked by documented performance data that left no room for debate. Disagree with the rankings? Think another aircraft deserves to be included on this list? Let me know in the comments which fighter you believe was truly the fastest, and why it deserves that crown.